Welcome to Hero Villains. Who do you think would win when Sentry versus Vulcan 1 million suns facing the energy manipulator? Sentry, whose real name is Robert Reynolds, is known as the man who possesses the power of 1 million exploding suns. After coming into contact with the Sentry Serum, he became a nearly omnipotent being capable of manipulating matter, energy, and even molecular structures. Sentry possesses physical strength far beyond that of the Hulk, the ability to fly, near absolute regeneration, and overwhelming mental power. However, his power is always accompanied by the Void, a destructive dark side that can consume entire worlds if it loses control. Vulcan, also known as Gabriel Summers, is the brother of Cyclops and an Omega-level mutant. He has the ability to control all forms of energy, from heat and electricity to radiation and pure cosmic energy. Vulcan can not only absorb and reshape energy at will, but also convert it into attacks with planet-level destructive force. His sharp intellect and strategic thinking have made Vulcan a terrifying space tyrant. Before we dive deeper into the analysis, please press the subscribe button and remember to turn on notifications by clicking the bell icon. Thank you very much. Thanks to a secret formula carefully hidden by a mysterious professor, the life of Robert Reynolds took an unexpected turn. From a skinny and isolated 9th grade high school student, he suddenly gained access to power far beyond human limits. In a moment of reckless impulse, Reynolds stole an experimental version of the super soldier serum from his own science teacher, who was secretly involved in a covert research project. Without truly understanding the nature of the substance, he only hoped to find a different sensation to escape his insecurity and the mental disorders that constantly tormented him. Upon drinking the serum, a massive source of solar energy instantly awakened within Reynolds, transforming him into a being with nearly godlike power. After defeating the bully who once tormented him at school, he sewed his first costume by hand and emerged before the world under the name Sentry, a symbol of hope and light. However, deep within his fractured mind, a brutal persona named Void was also born, silently growing stronger in the darkness. To survive, Reynolds unconsciously created a heroic identity to balance the destruction lurking within, opening the door to the inner tragedy of a god who must constantly battle himself. After the two opposing personas unexpectedly merged into a single entity, Robert Reynolds awakened in a dazed state, as if he had just emerged from a long nightmare. Before he could understand what had truly happened, government officials arrived. It is possible that the very professor who had lost the serum had secretly warned them. With innocence and simple trust, Reynolds agreed to be taken to the facility, where his new power was tested under cold lights and watchful eyes. There, the world witnessed for the first time the terrifying potential known as Sentry. He possessed not only strength and speed beyond all limits, but also superhuman intelligence, a nearly invulnerable body, heightened senses, and the ability to release energy and fly freely. All of this stemmed from his absorption of solar radiation and was tightly bound to his fragile mental state. When his mind was stable, Sentry was likened to the explosion of 1 million suns erupting at once. But the moment his inner balance wavered, that power diminished rapidly, turning him into a vulnerable target. Even deeper lay immense psychic potential that had yet to be fully unlocked. The energy surrounding Reynolds was even capable of calming the Hulk's rage, making the Green Giant obedient in an almost unbelievable way. At the same time, the Void persona continued to exist in the shadows, wielding similar power but tainted with destruction, along with the ability to shapeshift and invade the minds of others through dense black tendrils. It was a reminder that great power always comes with a terrible price. The Sentry faced countless enemies throughout his heroic journey, yet no force was more frightening than the adversary known as Void. The other half of his soul consumed by darkness, Void was not merely an evil personality, but existed with the cruel purpose of destroying everything the Sentry had ever protected. Every life saved became fuel for Void to spread death, as if the two were opposite sides of the same coin locked in eternal conflict. Neither realized the harsh truth that they were simply two aspects of the same person. Obsessed with destroying Void, the Sentry made an extreme choice, distorting his own memories and even shaking the memories of entire worlds, all to temporarily bury the darkness that continued to grow within. Alongside that brutal inner conflict, Sentry also had to face a long list of infamous threats. From Wilson Fisk with his terrifying underground power network, Victor Von Doom with limitless intellect and ambition, clerk of the shape-shifting Skrull race, to Galan, the devourer of worlds. It did not stop there, as he also battled cyborg pirates from another dimension, Danny Boy, who possessed abnormal strength, the living nuke, who existed like a living nuclear bomb, lobster-like beings hidden deep beneath the earth, the cunning Menace Master, Xeniac's Factious 5, and the murderous robot Tommy Vermilion. Each battle carved deeper into him, a bitter truth that his most dangerous enemy was himself. Sentry once stood alongside the greatest icons of the heroic world, joining forces with the Fantastic Four, the X-Men, and the Avengers to fight against Void, the dark persona that constantly gnawed at his mind. Yet, fate proved cruel when Reynolds later joined the Avengers under the leadership of Norman Osborn, the man known as the Green Goblin. On the surface, Osborn appeared sympathetic and promised to help Sentry control his inner demons, presenting himself as a guiding figure amid chaos. But behind that mask lay a cold scheme to exploit Void for his own ambitions. Through countless battles, sometimes alone and sometimes alongside other heroes, Sentry gradually came to a painful realization. Perhaps he himself was nothing more than the shadow of Void. A violent confrontation that nearly claimed the lives of Scout and the Hulk forced Reynolds to stop running from that truth. Just as he had not yet found a way to reconcile his two personas, his most persistent enemy struck. The fanatical general hired Jason Wingard, the mutant known as Mastermind, who had just been freed by the Secret Empire, to manipulate Reynolds' mind. Through illusions implanted directly into his consciousness, Sentry was forced to use his unexplored psychic power, erasing all memory of both personas and distorting the memories of the entire world, burying the existence of both Sentry and Void as if they had never existed. Many years passed in silence before Void suddenly awakened deep within the mind of Robert Reynolds. This dark persona slowly separated itself from the long-forgotten heroic form, quietly reclaiming fragments of lost memories to restore the name Sentry. That return brought no glory, only a heavy sense of unease. The Sentry realized his memories still contained suspicious gaps. Driven by doubt and vague fear, he pursued the fanatical general into the negative zone where sunlight could not reach and Sentry's power gradually weakened. It was a grim journey where even faith began to fracture. Then, Earth trembled as Null, the primordial god of the symbiote race, arrived with hundreds of thousands of shadow dragons. The Avengers were forced to summon Sentry as their final hope. He hurled himself into space with the intent to draw Kunal away from the planet and destroy him. But before that ancient power, Sentry was torn apart without mercy, his body shattered and dissolved into the void. Though his death occurred in Earth's orbit, Robert's soul still lingered, lonely like a ghost. Guided by Dr. Jane Foster, the mighty Thor, now bearing the title of Valkyrie, brought him to Valhalla, where fallen warriors find their final rest. I sincerely hope you will subscribe to the channel, as it helps us greatly and you are truly the best. Thank you very much. Now let us talk about Vulcan. Gabriel Summers is a mutant who possesses energy manipulation abilities at a catastrophic level, and he is also the long-lost brother of Cyclops and Havoc. His life began in tragedy when he was enslaved on the throne world of the Shi'ar Empire. In that alien place, Gabriel was subjected to biological manipulation and forced artificial growth, rapidly reaching the prime of young adulthood while carrying a deeply wounded soul. After many upheavals, he found a way back to Earth, where his latent power began to erupt violently. Because of his extraordinary abilities, Gabriel was guided by Moira McTaggart and later recruited by Professor X into a secret X-Men team. However, the first mission quickly turned into a disaster. Although he was saved by Darwin, Gabriel fell into a state of immobility, drifting silently in Earth's orbit for many years like a living corpse in the cold void of space. It was not until M-Day, when a surge of mutant energy swept across the world, that he awakened with power far beyond what he had before. That awakening brought no hope, but instead ignited a thirst for revenge. Vulcan, Gabriel's new name, began hunting down everyone who had betrayed and abandoned him, including the X-Men. Eventually, he returned to the Shi'ar Empire and aligned himself with Deathbird, the disgraced yet ambitious princess. With nearly godlike power and a subtle legal loophole, Vulcan seized the throne and became the Shi'ar Emperor, then led the entire empire into a brutal war against the Kree, turning the universe into a battlefield for his endless fury. After a crushing defeat at the hands of Black Bolt, Gabriel Summers was cast adrift from the stage of power and fell into the hands of mysterious alien forces. Imprisoned within the vault, he became the subject of merciless experiments. These beings brutally interfered with Vulcan's mind, stripping away every remaining fragment of humanity and severing it from a psyche that was already fractured. When he was finally released, Vulcan no longer remembered who he was or what he had experienced. He walked the universe as a different man, unaware that he had been transformed into a living bomb, ready to detonate at any moment according to the will of those manipulating him from the shadow. Meanwhile, the civil war within the Shi'ar Empire continued to smolder. Forces loyal to the deposed Lilandra kept fighting against Vulcan's faction. Under the steady leadership of Havoc, his blood brother, and the seasoned Starjammers, the balance of the war gradually shifted in Lilandra's favor. Vulcan's armies weakened rapidly due to waves of desertion and growing unrest among the Shi'ar populace, who had never accepted an outsider as emperor. As a result, Vulcan's resolve grew increasingly unstable. Upon receiving reports of an attack on Feather's Edge, he chose to strike first, leading a fleet to ambush the Starjammers. Yet, fate once again turned against him. Amid the chaos of battle, the warship Hammer was mercilessly destroyed by the CR Tau, those known as Death to the Shi'ar. Vulcan and Gladiator charged to attack the leader of the CR Tau, but they were quickly overwhelmed. That defeat forced them to retreat deeper into Shi'ar space, leaving behind a fractured empire and an increasingly uncertain future. Driven to the brink, Vulcan chose a path of total destruction. He decided to activate Finality, using this ultimate weapon to annihilate the Sciar by placing an entire blazing star in the midst of the enemy fleet. At that moment, Alex Summers returned to the battlefield. After absorbing enough energy to be able to harm his own brother, Havoc made the painful decision to end everything. The clash between the two brothers erupted with devastating force, carrying not only the weight of immense power but also resentment and a family tragedy that had never been healed. Meanwhile, Rachel and Corvus desperately tried to disable the beacon that would trigger the Shi'ar's catastrophic attack, but every effort failed. The battle only came to a halt when the Shi'ar Imperial Guard suddenly appeared together with the imprisoned Starjammers, using their lives to force Alex and Vulcan to end their confrontation. After that upheaval, Vulcan plunged into a path of mad conquest. He expanded the Shi'ar Empire through brute force, subjugating many species, including the Xenox, and turning space into a constant battlefield. Alongside his imperial ambitions, Vulcan became increasingly obsessed with forcing Havoc to bow and acknowledge his superiority, something Alex steadfastly refused. In his frenzy, Vulcan suddenly launched an assault on the Kree Empire, then ruled by Black Bolt and the Inhumans, officially igniting a war between two cosmic superpowers. Vulcan was present in the final battle on Otherworld, where the X-Men and the Swordbearers of Krakoa fought against the Swordbearers of Arakko, the First Horsemen of Apocalypse, the forces of Arakko, the Amenthean demons, and the Summoners. Vulcan challenged Tarn, and the two nullified each other's powers. Although Vulcan struck first, Tarn quickly defeated him, beating him to death with brutal finality. When Vulcan ascended the throne of the Shi'ar Empire with his ambition no longer concealed, he began expanding his power by draining the energy of entire planets, turning once thriving worlds into cold corpses drifting through space. Faced with this threat, the Avengers and the Illuminati were forced to act. Sentry was chosen to confront him directly, as only his power was great enough to stop an emperor approaching godlike status. Sentry approached Vulcan's flagship in the Silent Void. The moment they came face to face, Vulcan mocked him, calling him a weak man wrapped in false power. In response, Sentry warned that abusing cosmic energy would bring irreversible consequences. As soon as the words were spoken, Vulcan opened fire. Streams of plasma and radiation surged forward, attacking while simultaneously attempting to drain the solar energy that sustained Sentry. He dodged in an instant, counterattacked with overwhelming speed, and delivered a punch that sent Vulcan hurtling through space. Vulcan quickly adapted. He erected energy shields, absorbed the incoming blows to amplify his own power, and struck at Sentry's psychological weakness by invoking the name of the Void. Those whispered words caused Sentry to falter. Even so, he unleashed his true power. His torn body regenerated instantly at the molecular level. He moved at the speed of light, released raging energy storms, and dragged the battle down down to a desolate planet. Mountains collapsed, the ground split apart, and even a small black hole formed between the two titans as they collided. The strain of inner conflict gradually eroded Sentry. The void lurked in his mind, slowing him down, while Vulcan exploited every moment to absorb surrounding energy, growing ever more savage. Vulcan unleashed an attack powerful enough to destroy an entire star system, gravely injuring Sentry and forcing him to reconstruct his body in the void. In desperation, Sentry chose to hold nothing back. He released his full potential, creating an explosion likened to 1,000,000 suns igniting at once, engulfing Vulcan in blinding light. Vulcan recklessly tried to absorb that power to become unstoppable. This time, however, he went too far. The overwhelming energy caused his body to overload and begin disintegrating at the molecular level. In the decisive moment, the void nearly seized control, urging Sentry to kill Vulcan brutally. With the last of his will, he reclaimed control of himself. Sentry ended the battle as a hero, manipulating molecular structures to completely seal Vulcan's energy, rendering him unconscious and ending the threat. The winner is Sentry. I hope you enjoyed this battle. If you have any questions, please leave them in the comments. Follow me if you enjoyed it. That is today's video. Thank you very much.